Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Okay, we got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am so pleased that you're here because we do have quite the show for you tonight, and I think it's going to be interesting. I have all kinds of questions, and I know y'all are too. I think that we are going to get answers tonight. I'm counting on that. But, I just want to say that I am so feeling a shift. I think that it's a positive thing. I always say, be the change you want to see in the world. We can manifest this. Just be nice to each other. Be the wife, that you would want to have. Be the friend that you would want to have. It just seems to be lightening. I don't know if that's because I'm tired of listening, so I don't anymore. I don't really think that's it. But you know what? Keep up the good work because you can definitely feel a shift in the energy. And that being said, I really am looking forward to tonight's show. I got an email from this guy I'd been hearing about, but I hadn't talked to him. He's interesting. He is Kenney, Irish, goes by KW, and he is with New York Bigfoot Society, and he is the Cryptopunkologist. He does the co-hosts the New York Bigfoot Society's radio show. And I am just so interested in all the things that he does because I don't really want to go out and look for something that can eat me with no trouble whatsoever or just throw me down a ravine somewhere. But some people love that. And I really think that, I grew up with Bigfoot being the Harry and the Hendersons version. And I think I like that. But we'll see. But Kenney has a new book out, and it's his first. Well, no, it's not. He has done others, but this one is a huge compilation. I think it's awesome. It is called Folklore Frankenstein. I think that is a great title because, who doesn't look at Bigfoot and go, oh, that's a big guy. Well, so is Frankenstein. And I think it's really great. He published with Dark Moon Press, which is a great company. And he's got the introduction and the forewords are both really good. The intro is by Ken Gerhard, who is also a cryptozoologist. And the foreword is by Katy Elizabeth, who is a cryptozoologist who focuses on Champ, the Lake Champlain monster. And I think that's pretty cool. She started Champ Search. She is probably the premier woman lake monster hunter. I've spoken with the woman who is the cryptozoologist who is the premier. She's been awarded Researcher of the Year and such for Bigfoot hunting with the Olympic Project. I have not spoken with a woman who has done any champ research. I'm very familiar with Scott Martis, who is a friend of mine, who is the male side of that coin. So I think this is going to be really interesting. Her book is Waterhorse of Lake Champlain and The Search. But there's another one coming out too, so we'll get her to talk to us about that. I am going to just tell you both, welcome to Fate Mag Radio. I'm so glad you're here. If I blew any of that, we can correct it as we go. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having us, Sam. I appreciate it. And I just wanted to put out there real quick, the last book that I had was Waterhorse of Lake Champlain 2, and now this one's Waterhorse of Lake Champlain, The Search. So you almost had it right, but you did an awesome introduction, and I'm very honored and proud to be on the program because this is great. I'm really excited to correlate with Kenney, Irish, and it's an honor that I got to do a foreword for his book as well.
I think it is too, and I'm glad you're here. Kenney, you're there, right?
Yeah, I'm absolutely. I wanted to let ladies go first, so let Katy come in and thank you. And I want to thank you too for having myself on and Katy at the same time. I've been listening to Fate Radio for a little while now, and I'm definitely happy to be here. And your introduction was good. It was very informative, so it was very much appreciated. A lot of the time, when I go on different shows, it's just kind of like Kenney W. Irish, author, Folklore Frankenstein. All right, let's go. But you kind of went right into it for both of us, and it was awesome.
Well, people are interested. People want to know. That's one thing that I have found, especially with Fate. This is not the only show I host, but this is my more anomalous topic show, and I am so proud to be affiliated with Fate magazine. It just tickles my fancy like you wouldn't believe. But I love the conversations that I get to have here with people like y'all. So I think Fate's pretty special too. So
absolutely.
For sure.
Well, I would like to are we going to roll with this ladies first the whole way through?
Hey, it's whatever you guys want to do. I'm easy going.
I just need a heads up now. So no,
well, even though he's not from the South, he's still a southerly gentleman, apparently.
Apparently,
so we're
well,
honored.
He started out, a little lower, so now he's in the Adirondacks, which is beautiful. I mean, I absolutely loved both of y'all are in beautiful locations, and I think that's one of my favorite things about being able to do outside work. And, I've got a friend who is in our chat over at fatemag.com who, when I was talking about women researchers, she said, like me, totally like you. It's just really a gift to be able to talk to people who are out there trying to get answers. And, basically for you, Katy, you're living your dream, right? Because you were just fascinated by this even as a child.
Yeah, it's kind of a long story. I'm 35 now, but back when I was 7, basically the fascination with Champ started when I was 7 years old. I was watching an episode of Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack, and Robert Stack was the voice for Unsolved Mysteries. I mean, anytime that theme song would come on or his voice, it would just give you the chills. Still does it to this day.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I was like, And I was watching that episode with the famous Sandra Nancy photo that was taken in 1977. And I remember yelling to my mom. She was in the kitchen, and she's like, what the heck are you yelling? I'm like, Mom, come here. And she says, what? I said, Mom, look, there's a dinosaur. That's what I said. There's a dinosaur in Lake Champlain. She says, where the heck is that? I'm like, Vermont and New York. And she's like, oh, geez. And she just kind of rolled her eyes and kind of laughed about it. And I'm like, Mom, can we go there? Can we please go there for a family vacation? And we never went on family vacations. The most common vacation was driving around Rhode Island, the Ocean State, that's where I grew up, or Massachusetts, and that's as far as we went, or Connecticut. Like that. We never went to Disneyland, Disney World, nothing. So she said, well, how far away is it? And then she pulls out the map. She's, well, about 4.5, 5 hours. Someday we'll go there. Well, that's about how it led for that point. So at that point, as a curious 7-year-old, I went to my local library at my school. I ran in, and I'm like, what kind of books do we have on lake monsters? And the librarian looked at me like I had two heads. Mm-hmm. And I get that sometimes. I get that sometimes now when I say I'm looking for Champ. People are like, what the heck is wrong with you? So anyways, I found a couple of books, well, the librarian did, and she gave me a couple of books. One was Champ Beyond the Legend by Joseph Darzinski, and the other book was The Monsters of Loch Ness by Roy Mackal. So I studied those books for a long time, and I always went into Ogopogo and various lake monsters around the world with my studies. And then up until, I think it was 2012, actually 2010, and before that I got into the paranormal field. And the paranormal field, that started when I was around, actually much younger. I think we lived in a haunted house for probably, I've always had some weird experiences. And it's weird because, I don't think that Champ is a paranormal thing, but there's something around it. And I wonder, why all of a sudden I have good luck. It's kind of weird, but I know that they're biological. So when I started having paranormal experiences, I started doing paranormal work because that's much easier. You don't have to spend thousands on a boat. You don't have to spend thousands of hours on the water. It's right in your backyard. Much like Bigfoot, it's not easier, but it's a little bit because you have it behind you. But there's more to Bigfoot,
it's actually, it's just less expensive because you still have to travel. You have your boat, you're there. That's a expense that is already handled. But, it's just, they all tie together. and they all require equal dedication, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
and paranormal
it's all
equipment is
about,
pricey.
Yeah, it's all about dedication and observation and cataloging everything that you do and correlating the data to each other and eyewitness reports and experiences with the paranormal, and it all ties into each other. And it's so amazing because with my new book, Water Horse of Lake Champlain, The Search, I actually have a good friend of mine that I met through Facebook, Nick Redfern, who does a lot of stuff with the UFO and paranormal world. And him and I got talking tonight, and he said, you know, have you ever really thought that maybe Champ is just paranormal? And I'm like, well, yeah, there's been a lot of stories about that. I said, I don't believe it's just paranormal, but I do believe that there's something around it. And there's so many instances where your camera will focus, unfocus. There's a lot of weird stuff. And I have to say, and I'll tell you later with the data that I've obtained, there was an instance where we had gotten something, and before that happened, we did a ceremony and that sort of thing. So he opened up my mind with my paranormal background to say, okay, you know that they're biological, but maybe there's something a little bit else, a little bit adding on to that. And I truly believe, I really do, I believe that there's something, not that they're all paranormal, but there's a little bit of something behind it as well.
What do you feel?
Well, I think any type of animal, can pick up on
vibes,
energies. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I mean, that could definitely, without a doubt, have play a role in it.
I agree. They're so intuitive, and they pay attention to it much better than we humans do.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I always say, if I had friends that I could trust on, it would be a handful of animals. It'd be maybe like 2 people, you know. I mean, that's the truth. It's true. I mean, they know your inner thoughts. If you're sad, if you're sitting there and you're upset about something, they'll come right up and lay on you, and they just know what your heart's feeling.
And I have a pack of, accidentally, I have a pack of 4 rescues. We had 4, and we lost 2 within a year. And I was content to just let it lie and do a little healing. And my husband wound up bringing in 2 more, which was funny because I was the one blamed for all these dogs, right? So not me. But, you know, I came home from a trip injured, and the rescue that I had had for just like 2 months, 2 or 3 months, I think that's right, maybe 4, before I went on my trip, I came home broken, right? And she was like, I can't let you out of my sight for a minute. And so pretty much she hasn't since. She was the only dog allowed to, sleep in the bed when we had to build a box to protect my leg. So, it was a really weird and moment. But they're so intuitive, and if you're their human, they are so into you. And
oh yeah, I mean, I have my cat. I have many animals. I have 2 horses and 3 cats. I lost a dog. I also lost a horse a couple of years ago. So I know about the loss. And I'll tell you what, it changes you drastically. Mm-hmm. Even though I have the sensitive side, and that's the problem, because you miss the body being there, but they're there in spirit, but it really does grind on you, and it gives you a hard time. It's hard to deal with. And a lot of people say that animals have no feelings. I just walked into the house about probably 20 minutes before I did the show, and my cat came up, and he just started purring and kissing me on my face. I'm worried about so many things I have to do this week. I'm just like the worry. They know. He and then my husband goes, why is he kissing you up? I'm like, he knows that I'm stressed out. He knows. Yep. So that was a prime example. And Kenney knows that, because I think What do you have for a reptile? What is she again?
I've got 3. I've got leopard.
Oh, geez, I didn't know you had 3.
Yeah, I got a leopard gecko, lucent bearded dragon, what the heck is she called? Oh my God, the big girl. She's like a my God, it's like I can't remember what the heck she is, but she's like from that show. I don't know if you guys ever saw that show, Jessie. It was.
Is that the one that Serena put up, and she's kind of like the chunky side to her?
Yes.
That's the one that I saw, and I was like, she's such a love bug. I could tell.
Yes, Savannah. She's a Savannah monitor.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yep. She's chunky, and you just pick her up and hug her and love her. And she sleeps with my daughter.
How can people say that animals have no feelings? Come on.
Yeah.
True. But you know what? We have to take a break real quick, and we will be right back, and we will continue on. Thanks for being here. Y'all come back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
We are confident that none of our hosts are possessed. Being repossessed a few times, that might be a different story. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am Kat Hobson, your host, the voice of fate as it were. Joined tonight by my guests, Kenney and Katy. And I am so glad that you are here because this is fun. I know that, Kenney, I know that we were pretty chatty there and you were trying to get a word in. Sorry about that. We'll do a little better with you.
No worries.
So, you know, it's pretty interesting what you do. We know what got Katy into water horses, as we're going to call them. I just love that. But what brought you into the world of cryptozoology?
Oh man, it goes right back to just being really, really young, and monsters like Godzilla and King Kong and the Incredible Hulk being like who or what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had a weird little mind when I was a child. And I actually grew up in northern Vermont, And we ended up, I don't know, it was maybe first grade, second grade. We ended up reading a book that had to do with, different monsters. And I remember the teacher mentioning, about Champ being in the lake. And it's funny because I'm really associated, with like Sasquatch. But if somebody wants to ask me, hey, what's your favorite, cryptid? I'll always tell them it's Champ, because I grew up, again, in northern Vermont, and so I was going by the lake constantly. And every single time I went by the lake, I was looking for Champ. Never saw him. Never had the luck of that. But, and so, I mean, that's what kind of got me into it. And then as I got a little bit older, and went into high school, and, it was still in the back of my mind, but, not really thinking about it. As a young teenage kid, I was more thinking about music, guitars and cars and all that. And I ended up taking a class called Gothic Tales. And the whole semester, all we did was watch movies by like Stephen King and talk monsters the whole time. That's all we did. And from there on, I kind of got back into it. And it just kind of stuck with me from there moving forward. But it was, I'll say when I got into it, kind of like took the next step and like, researching and doing different aspects like that was, it was back in, I'd say maybe 2000, 2001. I was flipping through the channels and I came across the show Ghost Hunters. And it may have been a little bit later than that. And I remember watching it thinking, what the heck is this?
Right.
And then the more I watched it, I'm like, people actually do this? Like, I grew up, I was a fan of the Ghostbusters movies, but I didn't realize people actually did that. So I was like, so I kept watching it, and then I got interested in it. But I'm not big on, like, the paranormal. Like, I run from ghosts. Like, I don't have anything I don't really want to have anything to do with anything, spiritual, to a degree. Like, I'm not going after looking for anything spiritual. But and then I started looking into other different things. I'm like, wow, people actually go out and hunt Bigfoot. It's like they actually do that. And that's when I kind of got, kind of launched into it, where before it was just, kind of like a love of, like legends and lore, like the legend of Sleepy Hollow, different things like that. I've always been drawn to that. But as I started to realize like there's an actual community that actually goes out and does this on a regular basis. That got me really interested in looking into different things, and so I started looking into different researchers, and came across Ken Gerhard, and started kind of following him in the work that he was doing. In a few other cryptozoologists, and it just kind of threw me into a direction I didn't actually anticipate going into. But the beautiful part is, again, I love lore, I love legend, so it all just kind of intermingled and brought me to where I am today.
For which we're all appreciative, because I enjoyed your book. When I was
thank you.
When I was young, I was very into anything different. And my grandmother started buying me books by Catherine Tucker Wyndham. And they were like the 13 Alabama Ghosts, 13 Florida Ghosts, like those things, and 13 Southern Ghosts. It was mesmerizing to me. I couldn't believe that there were so many in so many places. And I've actually investigated most of the places that she wrote about so far. And I was lucky that when I was in 6th grade, she came to my school to lecture and brought her resident ghost, Jeffrey. So that was pretty nifty. But, it's really interesting when you're taken, when your interest is captured to the point that that it's something that becomes a passion, and you develop that as you grow older, and you're able to actually live that passion. I think we're very lucky people.
Oh, we are. Without a doubt. I mean, most people don't find, what they're passionate about, ever. So many people search, and for me, I mean, it just, again, it's just everything just kind of comes together, which, kind of makes it kind of a perfect direction. And again, I couldn't be happier. I love to write. I've always written. I remember at a young age writing stories, writing little comics out. And ironically, right around 18, 19, I actually stopped writing stories and different literature like that. And I started kind of following, playing the guitar and playing in different bands, which you're still writing because you're writing lyrics, but it was the total complete opposite of what I was originally doing. I'd say it was probably back in 2010 when I sat back down in front of the computer and I'm just like, I get the urge to write a story. I want to write a story. I want to write a book. And it just started falling out of me. It was just kind of like I rewrote something that I'd written my senior year. It was like a short story. And then I ended up just turning it into like the whole book. So the first book that I actually wrote and became published with was called Kevin in the Upside Down Halloween. Just because the Halloween is one of my favorite holidays. It starts out my favorite time of year, which is the fall, right before the holidays. So I wrote that book, and unfortunately, there was a fallout between myself and the publisher. So I didn't write for a couple of years just because I had to wait for contracts to run out, different garbage like that. And then I ended up writing Kevin and the Bigfoot Runaround. Well, because that was associated with the old publisher, I ended up changing the main character's name, which is more marketable anyway. So it's now Stanley Riker instead of Kevin. And then, because I love writing young reader chapter books for ages like 6 to 10. So Folklore Frankensteins is actually my first ever young adult to adult nonfiction book.
Well, I think you did a good job with that. But I do love that you started with, the young adult genre, because people get a little bit too freaky sometimes in the writing that's geared to them. And I don't feel like you did. It's, you have to be careful because they're so malleable in their thinking that you can get into their heads and kind of have things manifesting. And that's never good. So
I 100% agree.
Yeah. I've read books that I thought, there is no way I would let my kid read this book.
Yeah.
So I think that yours are not those, though.
Yeah, no, and again, kind of like how I said before, I kind of really don't do anything with ghosts or anything, that can kind of be perceived as dark. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just kind of like not my style. And when I was writing Folklore Frankensteins, I know I've mentioned this before, but I can't tell you how many outlines I did for the book. And every time I got done with the outline, I realized all I was doing was writing the same way that everybody else did and was regurgitating the same information, that every other author has written. So that's why when Folklore Frankensteins is kind of so, I guess, for some people kind of off the wall, because I'm like, how do I do this? How do I make it interesting? How do I make it so I'm not just regurgitating what every other researcher or explorer has done? So I'm like, you know what? People love history. They like to know history behind certain things. So, and not just, history of explorers and researchers and cryptozoologists. People like to hear history about, different states, So I went to town on that, and I'm like, and you know what? I'm going to do all 50 states, which sounded good. It was a lot of work.
It sounded good at the beginning. Well, it is good. You did a good job.
Did. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I'd say the toughest part was, just fact checking, everything. Obviously, encounters with Sasquatch. Your fact check is pretty much the person that's telling you it. So there's not a whole lot that you can do on that. There were certain individuals that I spoke with that just my gut was fact checking them. Where I had one individual, I spoke with on the phone, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've seen the Sasquatch. I've seen many of them." I'm like, "Well, really? How many have you seen?" He's like, "Hundreds." So I'm just like, click. I'm just like, yeah. No.
Hey, they're too good at hiding for that to be true.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, I had individuals that were just way too forthcoming, with like too many details, and then I had also other ones where they wanted to, but then they kind of had like you can send the check to me, like in the mail to this address. So I was looking for people, that were less forthcoming with their encounters. They it's like the ones that I kind of had to talk to a little bit and just kind of get to know a little bit on the phone. Those were the ones that I went with, just for the simple fact that, nowadays, I mean, there's so many people that, Sasquatch and Bigfoot is mainstream now. I love the show Finding Bigfoot, and I still to this day tell people that Finding Bigfoot is what actually made Sasquatch and Bigfoot mainstream. So now it's just like, everybody, sees the show, and, everybody wants to be, on TV, everybody wants to be in books. And so I was very hesitant on some of the encounters that folks had told me or had relayed to me. And I had to find 50 of them. So I literally found 100 of them, but some of them I just had to, I'm just like, no, this doesn't even, this doesn't make any sense. This person wants to be paid for being in my book, and I don't even know when I'm getting paid, but it writes a book, understands what I'm saying there. And, just crazy things like that. So, but it's been good. It's the book's doing really well. People are enjoying it. People are entertained with it. And that was one of the big things I wanted to do as well. I didn't want to regurgitate, again, what everybody else was writing. And at the same time, I wanted to entertain people.
You did. I am.
Excellent.
When I first started, of course, my state's first out of the sheet there. I was sitting there looking at it, and I thought, yeah, that's pretty on point. Also pretty on point. There's a lot of information here. So, I love that you went through and provided the historical, the populations, the historical side of little things, that you included, that we were the birthplace of the civil rights movement. And people forget that the horror, just the absolutely horrible side of that, was not even the high percentage of the people that were supporting that. And, even back then, if it bleeds, it leads was in play. But when people come here now and try to protest, when those police officers were killed in Dallas a couple of years ago, we had BLM come here and try to organize a protest. And we didn't really have any people from Birmingham there. So they were all the people that had been bussed in and were getting $25 an hour to be here, basically.
Sure.
And I thought, go Birmingham. Don't let people, taint us with that again, because it was bad enough the first time. But people just always assume that we're still like that. And it's nice for that not to be the primary thing that, the first thing that is, comes out about us. So thanks for that. It wasn't negative. It was just a comment. And this Alabamian appreciates it.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad I got it right, because I'm known to get things wrong quite often.
Yeah, it was all good.
But
so,
whole layout for each chapter with each state. The real secret, I guess, behind it was when I pushed, all the outlines away that were pretty much what everybody else was doing. I was like, you know what, I'm going to be in different states. I'm going to be doing different, speaking engagements, different lectures. I'm like, why don't I write each chapter as if I'm actually there giving like an actual lecture or state? So, because anytime I sit down and there's somebody that's speaking, and they come from out of state, I like to hear that they know about the state that I'm from. That really pulls me in. So, so I'm like, I'm going to write every single chapter as if it's an actual lecture, as if it's an actual speaking engagement. So if you when we get off of the show, if you go back and you look through it, you're going to see how everything is just kind of outlined in that way, where it's like, and that's how I do my lectures. I start out with, just talking about, evidence, and then going right into, the history of the state, famous people from the state. People, that are listening to you love that. And then, they want to know about, the Native American tribes from that location, especially when you're talking about folklore and because we all know that, Sasquatch, if it wasn't for the Native Americans, we wouldn't even know what a Sasquatch was. And then to go into, a popular cryptid from that state, and then to go into an encounter from that state, there's pretty much my 30-minute lecture or speech, what have you. And so I'm prepared. So whatever state I end up going into, I'm prepared with a lecture and a book.
Good planning. I didn't think of that.
Simplify.
I believe that's a plan I'm going to follow. So,
helpful, I'll tell you.
Well, it would have to be. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
But, well, Katy, you have gone quiet on us.
Put my phone on mute because I was coughing a little bit. So here I am.
Well,
here I am.
Well, just making sure. I didn't want you to feel left out of the conversation. And
No. You gotta let the gentlemen go on their terms because obviously they let us go first.
Yes. I really am. I don't generally have two guests at one time. And I find this really refreshing because you know and like each other, which is a big plus. You're both professional. You're good in your field. And I just love that. I love talking to people who love what they get to do and who appreciate that. So what is it that, let's see, the best way to go with this. What was the first thing, Katy, that you had to do to get yourself into a position to go out into the world and do what you do? Because as you said, you had to get a place to live on Lake Champlain. You had to get a boat. If I'm not mistaken, you do a lot of your maintenance on your own boat.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it is expensive to own one. I've got one that we gave to my son-in-law because we didn't have the
we're sick of it. Get rid of it. Go on.
I wasn't sick of it.
My heart will go on.
Yeah. And that wasn't even an inboard. So,
yeah.
It was annoying.
Yeah, it is. And when I started here and I finally moved up to here, it was a fight. I had to get this house. That was another story that I don't tell anybody. But besides that, the boat itself is very worthy. It's very nice. It's a good little boat. It's 1988. So it's not new. It's kind of old. The problem with Champ Research is the funding, because people do not believe in what we do. But I just push that aside and I work on. So, here we are today. My boat's going to go out in probably 2 days. It's going to be awesome. But it's hard. It's hard. I don't have $1 million. I don't have, I mean, if you saw my property, I have 6.5 acres. I have horses. I have so much to take care of. So much. But I manage. And that's about my heart. Because if I didn't care, excuse me, if I didn't care about what I do, if I didn't care about my animals or the farm or whatever, I would not be here still. The problem with cryptozoology research is that there is so much money that needs to be involved to solve this, to solve Bigfoot as well. And there's no funds. It's basically Kenney and I and other researchers who are dedicated to do that sort of work.
Well, that's true. What do you think can be done to alter that?
Sorry, my phone cut out. What's that?
I was just asking what you think can be done to alter that, to help with the funding.
Well, awareness, bringing out what we do, the research, the data that we've collected, and maybe also getting some scientists put in. But the problem is scientists do not want their reputation ruined from Sasquatch or Champ. It's hard.
Well, it's kind of like why UFOs have been rebranded UAP.
Yeah.
You know, and I noticed that there is a lot more discussion of Sasquatch than there is, or there's starting to be more conversation relevant to Sasquatch than Bigfoot.
Yeah,
which is also interesting.
With lake monsters, the problem is it's more in tune with water and with money. And I know Sasquatch is very big now, and there's so much that could be put on that aspect. It's sustain basically a big fund to do that. But you're looking in the water. You're looking 400 feet deep. It's hard. So we need the support. We need the support on both Sasquatch and also lake monsters. And lake monsters, basically, it's just me and a couple other people that dabble now and then. So, I mean,
well, I'm going to beg to defer on that. There are a lot of dedicated Champ researchers who have been doing this for decades. So it's not it's not something that's not popular or whatever. It's something that very few people have had an interest in.
No, I agree, and we have people that do the field research and the history research, and that's a good thing because we have two combining in one, and we should all research together.
Well, I think that's where it's going to, because, you know, well, you're in the paranormal community. You know that at that point there was a point where it was fairly cutthroat. You know, everybody was trying to get on a show. Everybody was trying to protect their evidence. Nobody wanted to say how it got there, what they used to get information and stuff. And so far I'm finding with cryptids that doesn't seem to be so much the issue. I think that they're trying to communicate better. But I know that it's really hard sometimes to get past the egos with that, isn't it?
Well, basically working together will be a nice thing. And I strongly put the aspect out there that we all should, as paranormal, Bigfoot, lake monsters, should all work together and find a solution. And that's how we're going to find answers. We can't fight. We can't battle each other and do this ego trip. It's not about that. It's about joining together. Hey, what's your idea? What's your idea? Let's put it together and make an identikit and prove what we believe in and do that. That's all about what I'm at. Like, that's what I care about.
Well, it matters.
Yeah, the biggest thing nowadays, and you guys both said it, is what's keeping a lot of that from happening is ego. It's like any other, I guess you could say, subject or industry. There's a lot of competition. I've had some people say to me, hey, I've never heard of you, and then all of a sudden you're everywhere. For a long time, I kind of stayed in the shadows. My day job, I work in sales and marketing. So I was able to, with my publisher, do the proper marketing. So there's a lot of people that, when I first kind of started hitting the scene, in the community, that were really, really nice to me. But when they kind of felt like, oh, wait a minute, this guy's competition. He's writing books. He's got a reputation, this and that. All of a sudden, certain people didn't want to talk to me anymore. Right. It was just like they saw me as like, hey, he's competition, and and they're like, how did you, you came out of nowhere and you've got this following. It's like, because first of all, I don't have an ego. And I support everybody. Like, I don't, the big names in the industry, sure, I kiss their butts. But you know who else butts I kiss? Everybody's.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Everybody needs some support. Everybody needs some backing. And, there's just so much ego right now flying around that, it's tough, for everybody to pull together. It's not impossible because, there's a lot of people that I surround myself with that are really, really good, humble people, that really care about what they do. But
I've talked to a lot of the people in your field. I agree. I think that the Bigfoot / Sasquatch community is more supportive of each other than almost anybody else in a paranormal field or anomalous field. And that
it really comes
me.
down to how you handle yourself, because I've been in situations where it's just, I mean, you get it in all the fields, but I've been in situations where I've been attacked because, like in the Bigfoot, like I always say it like this, the saying, you never should talk religion and politics with family or friends. Well, yes. I always say that you should never talk religion, Bigfoot, and politics. I've knocked politics down to number 3 and put Bigfoot number 2, because people like, for some reason, people see the word theory as a bad word. And the phrase, I don't know, is a bad phrase. And I do it all the time. And, and I've had people, give me, just get on my case about it. They're like, well, it's not a theory. This is truth. It's like, well, in a subject where there is no accountability, it really is theory. And, for instance, it's, what's a good way that I could put this? There's enough evidence to suggest that there's something there, that there's something going on. But so many people, they want to believe so bad that, again, it makes the word theory a bad word in the community. And I'm a healthy skeptic. I question everything. just because I don't want to just jump on the bandwagon and, just start following, what everybody else is doing. And that's one of the reasons I joined the New York Bigfoot Society. Talking with the founder, Gary Robusto, before I was invited to join the group, he was very much like that too, where he's like, we question what we're looking at. We don't just say, yes, this is what it is. And I think when you really question, what you're looking at and what's in front of you, and you don't just automatically slap a label on it, that unfortunately offends a lot of people. If people want to believe a certain thing, that's completely fine. But again, for me, when it comes down to, the research that I do with the group and everything, we look at stuff where we have a lot of theories. And I just don't think that theory should be looked at as a bad word. And as far as I don't think that should be considered a bad phrase, because folks feel like they're not taken serious if they say, I don't know, which is completely the opposite, in my opinion.
It is fine to say you don't know. I say it all the time in what I do. And, it's just one of those things that you have to recognize. There is a reason that it is the theory of relativity. Mm-hmm. That the speed of light is the fastest we can go is a theory. That's not a known proven fact.
Correct.
Because obviously somebody figured out how not to do that. They're getting zipping around places. And the fact that we just haven't figured it out yet is something that I think yet is a great word. We haven't found it yet.
It is.
I was actually watching a show the other day, and I was so upset because it was people who were out hunting Bigfoot. That may have been the name of the show. But I'm like, what are you doing? I know that there are those people that think that you're going to have a carcass in order to do the testing, but wouldn't it be lovely to bring one in live and just say, we figured out how to communicate with them. He's here to do, whatever testing needs to be done. And by the way, do you have somebody that communicates telepathically because he can? That would be lovely. So, but I don't think that you have to have a carcass to be able to prove the existence of something.
I don't either. The only thing that scares me is there's so many people that do, and that's usually, and in reality, it's funny because I'll tell people like, in the back of my mind, I really don't even want to prove the existence, because how do we prove the existence? It's by, unfortunately, some type of body, some type of something, and I actually dread that day. Be honest with you, because we can't, as a society, just be able to bring something to light and it be real. It's like it's got to be dissected. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. So I just, I want these cryptids to be recognized as real, but at the same time, I'm really concerned about how we would actually go about doing that. And as far as that TV show you're talking about, I believe they recently changed the name. It was originally called Killing Bigfoot, and now Bigfoot is Real. Because I saw it the other day. It was, and I'm like, oh, this is a new show. I've never heard of this. Bigfoot is Real. And it was just those same knuckleheads running around out in camouflage and with guns, and it's just like, okay, whatever. Yeah. And and again, that's the thing that scares me. But I don't know. Too many people that I've talked to are like, well, that's how we're going to have to do it. And then I'm like, well, then let's not worry about it, because I don't want to see anything happen to any animal.
Well, me either. And we're at our top of the hour break. Katy, when we come back, could you actually share the history of Champ and what you're doing to get your information gathered? Because a lot of people are curious, and I would like to get into some detail about that. That'll be cool.
Sounds good.
And so we will be back. This is our news break. You never know. I still am ever hopeful that we are going to get a little good news somewhere along the line. Like I said, I'm feeling a shift in energy. Probably has to do with Mercury. I don't even care. Just make it happen. So we will be back after this. Y'all come back too.
Support for NPR and the following message come from TNT. With the all-new season of The Alienist, Angel of Darkness, Dakota Fanning, Luke Evans, and Daniel Bruhl are on the hunt for a killer. Sunday, July 19th at 9, 8 Central on TNT. More at thealienist.com.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. Several Democratic leaders in Congress are demanding an immediate investigation into the Trump administration's use of violent tactics against Portland protesters. As NPR's Matthew Schwartz reports, the request comes amid ongoing protests over police brutality and racism.
The lawmakers are calling for an investigation into the use of force against what they say are peaceful protests in Portland and elsewhere. This comes after reports of federal agents in camouflage and tactical gear jumping out of unmarked vehicles to detain and search protesters in Portland this week. In a letter to the inspectors general of both the Justice and Homeland Security departments, the Democratic lawmakers criticized the Trump administration for, quote, arresting American citizens in the dead of night. They want to know each time the administration has authorized the use of force in response to people exercising their First Amendment rights. Matthew Schwartz, NPR News, Washington.
The number of coronavirus case infections in the U.S. has risen to more than 3.7 million, with more than 140,000 deaths, according to data from Johns Hopkins University, which also shows rising numbers in several states. But mask mandates around the country vary by state and city. But lawmakers say rising numbers have them changing their minds. Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas is now requiring face coverings.
Because we did see an increase in cases in the community, not tied to where we have lifted restrictions, we did take the further step of instituting a statewide mask mandate.
Masks are also required now in Colorado. Democratic Governor Jared Polis says they shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Masks are a ticket to more freedom. It makes it less likely that businesses will be shuttered. It makes it less likely that people will die. It makes it more likely school will return.
Both men speaking there to ABC's This Week. EU leaders are haggling for a third day over an $800 billion budget to revive its pandemic-hit economies. Joanna Kakissis reports.
The Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, wants to withhold funds from member states like Hungary unless they meet the EU's democratic standards. That enraged Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, who spoke to reporters in Brussels.
I don't know what is the personal reason for the Dutch Prime Minister to hate me or Hungary, but he is attacking so harshly.
The EU has long criticized Orban for cracking down on courts, civil society, and the media. Orban says this criticism is politically motivated.
So if somebody is not ready to accept the rule of law, should leave the European Union immediately.
But Orban is threatening to veto the EU budget if it includes a caveat about rule of law.
This is NPR. As the number of coronavirus cases around the country continues to grow, the FDA has now issued an emergency use authorization to allow pool testing. That's a method that can dramatically increase the country's capacity to identify cases. One test covers as many as 4 samples at one time. That allows for quicker results while preserving scarce supplies. Well, Major League Baseball is set to resume an abbreviated season later this week. NPR's Amy Held reports one of America's favorite pastimes, though, will look different in the age of coronavirus.
Some of the players masked. High fives? How about socially distant air slaps instead? The stands empty. Cardboard cutouts taking the place of fans, with pre-recorded cheers ringing through the stadium. Exhibition games played in Washington, New York, and Pittsburgh this weekend gave a peek at what the shortened 60-game regular season will look like. It begins Thursday with games in D.C. and L.A., and despite the changes,
we're so happy to be back.
That's Mets first baseman Pete Alonso. One team that won't be back to play at home, the Toronto Blue Jays. The Canadian government says it's not safe for the players to return from the U.S., the world's worst coronavirus-hit country. Amy Held, NPR News.
This is set to be a big week on Wall Street as some major companies are set to release second quarter earnings, including Tesla and Microsoft. Both of those companies have seen huge gains this year, helping to drive markets higher. Verizon and American Express will also release their earnings. I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to the second hour of Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and we are having so much information flowing here. My guests tonight are Katy Elizabeth, who is a Champ investigator. She is Champ Search. She is also an author, and her new book coming out is Water Horse of Lake Champlain Search. And we have Kenney English, who is a Bigfoot investigator. He is with New York Bigfoot Society. He is also co-host of their radio program. He is also an author, and his latest book is... Oh my goodness. That was not good. Help me out, Kenney.
Folklore Frankensteins.
Folklore Frankenstein. I could not get folklore to come out for anything. My apologies. So,
don't worry.
Good book. And I am very excited because, you know, we've been kind of tagging in, tagging out, and that's okay. But you both have such genuine information, and I'm interested in all of it. So, Katy, I do want to ask you if you could, we talked about it before we went to break, share the history of the Lake Champlain Monster Champ. Katy? Uh-oh. I do not know if we... Is she gone?
Yeah, it looks it. Let me...
I'll go get her.
Try to get her. Yeah, let me try to get her back.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and share your experience growing up in Vermont, looking for things that were unusual.
Yeah, certainly. So, I grew up in the northern part of Vermont, just outside of Burlington, Vermont. And, I always, I had a friend that he lived in Williston, Vermont. That's where I lived and grew up. And he had woods behind his house. And, we used to always, go out to the woods and run around. And, but of course, when it got dark, we had to come inside. And that always bummed me out. So I guess I have to say, one of the things I love about being in this community and doing what I do is I still have a love for going into the woods when it's dark and running around. As crazy as that sounds, it's just so much fun. You've got, headlamps on. You can barely see a little bit ahead.
Sorry. My phone got cut out.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it did. Sorry.
It's all right. So, I just, loved running around out in the woods. And, I always felt like there was something going on, in the woods. Because you've got those times where, all of a sudden, there's no animal activity. Everything's just dead quiet. And then you know something's going going on. And I know that they don't see me as any type of alpha predator. So, you know, running around, you know, at a young age like that, that was always just a lot of fun. And to be able to do it as an adult and nobody tell me no is just really, really fun. As far as, you know, some of the different aspects in research that we do with the New York Bigfoot Society, we go back to like the Native American lore and, you know, what they spoke on. And that's kind of how we come up with some of the ways that we go out and we explore. You know, we use, you know, modern technology. You know, we use trail cams. We use digital recorders. But mostly the trail cams aren't necessarily to try to capture a Bigfoot, a picture or photo, what have you. It's more to try to just kind of see what's going on in the woods and see what's happening, see if there's different activity at different times. For instance, we put trail cams up and digital recorders, and we put food in different areas, you know, like Cheerios, different foods like that, you know, any type of animal would come across and eat. So for a couple of weeks, there was nothing on the cameras. There was no activity. We went back out, and all the food was still there, which is very, very surprising because, I mean, you've got squirrels, you've got raccoons, you've got all kinds of different animals, but nothing was touched. Absolutely nothing was touched. So left the cameras up, left the recorders up, came back a couple weeks later. All the food was gone. And then there's, you know, they captured pictures of deer on the trail cams and everything. So, you know, the way that we research is we research the animal activity because for one, it really kind of pointed out to us that there was something going on in that area for those 2 weeks for those animals not to come around. And also in that 2 week time, there was some activity in the area that we research in. We did end up coming across what we believed to be an actual footprint in our research area. But it just goes to show that, you know, when you look at the surroundings and you listen to the animals, you pay attention to their behavior and what they're doing, it kind of gives you a pattern to when there is an alpha predator in that area and when there isn't. So it kind of gives us a direction of, okay, well, maybe, you know, once a month, you know, there's no animal activity, there's nothing, the food doesn't get eaten. Well, maybe that's the time. Maybe that's the week that we need to be out there, you know, just looking and observing and seeing what we can find. So where a lot of folks go out and again, they go out and they try to, you know, just find a Bigfoot, you know, do tree knocks and all this and that. You know, our approach is very different. The founder of the group, Gary, he has an education in animal behavior, and he's an avid hiker and survivalist. So that's another reason I joined this group, is because it's very different from a lot of the other groups that I'd spoken with. And I like the techniques of going out there and understanding the area, understanding the animals, the surrounding, the energy of the area, where I think that that's going to bring us closer to what it is we're actually out there looking for and want to find.
I like that. It's just an analytical approach to finding the best way to get to him.
Yeah.
Or get him to you.
Exactly. You know, and, you know, another thing, I mean, you know, again, the Native Americans, you know, spoke of Sasquatch, and there's like over 100 names for them, that they name them. And, you know, so for us, you know, we're looking at, you know, what the Native Americans said. You know, because a lot of people will say, well, you know, we think they're kind of interdimensional, this and that. And, you know, and again, we don't know, you know, that's a theory, but we do know that the Native Americans said that they were of spirit and flesh and blood. So what that means, I haven't been able to get an actual straight answer on, but again, we revert back to, the things that they spoke of, the legend and lore that they bring forth. To us, there's a lot of credibility there. So, one of the things that we did was we went out and we played some music, some Native American chanting and drumming, to see if, that would stir something up. It did, not to the point where we saw anything, but overall, I was thinking, if it didn't stir anything up, if it didn't do anything, worst case scenario, being out in the middle of the woods at night when it's pitch dark and just playing, Native chanting and drumming, just in itself was awesome. It was a really, really neat experience. And, again, it kind of stirred up some energy in the area. We could hear kind of in the distance, it did sound like something was walking. We're not going to say it was a Sasquatch. It very well could be an animal. We just couldn't see it. But as we were leaving, we noticed that there was this light in the distance, and there's no reason that light should be there. Absolutely no reason. There were no campers. There were no hikers. It just stayed right in that one area. There weren't swamp gases or anything that was going to create a light. And it just, after we ended up playing that, the Native American chanting and drumming, shortly after that appeared. So, is that paranormal? I guess it could be, but, for us, we just observed it, and, we talk about it. We're looking into it. We're going to try to see if we can make that phenomenon happen again. But there's definitely something to, the Native Americans' approach. And another reason we kind of go in that direction is, all the stories that they have in run-ins, they've got nothing to gain by saying anything that they've said over the last 100, 200 years. Absolutely nothing to gain. So if I'm going to do research, I'm going to absolutely go Native American, just because they bring forth a side of it that you don't think about, as well as a side where it really they had nothing to gain by saying what they were saying.
Well, that's true, and they are so much better at sharing their history with the coming generations than the average person, because they tend to, if you're around a reservation area, they tend to stay in that area. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of an interesting concept that you can get good answers there, for lack of a better way to put it. But I just find it amazing that you saw that light, because I feel like anytime that I'm participating in a drum circle or anything of that nature, the spiritual level just expands just tremendously. I would be surprised with some that I've participated in that if there wasn't just an aura around them. I've never asked anybody, but because you just feel the connectivity that the intent brings, I think. So maybe that was where your glow was coming from.
Yeah, it very, very well could be. It was definitely, made us stand there and just watch and, go through every reason of why it could be there. And, when we ran out of reasons of why it should be there, we went through, why shouldn't this be here? And again, it would fade out and then kind of come back strong again. And again, for no reason, there's nothing there that would produce that naturally. If I was with a different group of people, I'm sure, people would be saying different things. But again, the group that I'm with, very, question everything, but at the same time, very, very, very intelligent in what they do.
Yes.
And approach it from a point where, really not trying to find answers, but trying to find the answers, not just something that's exciting, that's going to get coverage.
That you can conform to your thought process. Absolutely. And we're at a break, so we're going to take it right quick, and we'll be right back with Katy as we're going to find out about the history of Champ.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Several U.S. presidents are on record talking about the UFO mystery.
Yeah, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan both had UFO sightings of their own, but the current presidential campaign might be the first in which UFO disclosure has been championed by a major party candidate.
DIA, CIA, it moves around, is operating a program to train psychic spies to spy and use their powers against Russia. John Ronson writes about this in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
The first known sighting of a ghost took place right after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the late 1860s during the administration of Ulysses Grant.
Project Paperclip, Clinton releases it all in 1998.
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial.
It's a place where UFO hunters and scientists gather to examine paranormal activity in the region.
Some of the documents, this is bringing Nazi scientists into the United States to work here. So we fought against the Nazis, and it's not, this again is not a revelation. As early as 1947, 1946, we knew some of this, right?
On the paranormal, will we see U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy go intergalactic in a quest for gold stolen by aliens? We'll tell you at least how the White House responded to claims the chief executive has been teleporting to Mars. But let's get to today's Capitol account.
UFOs, hauntings, psychic abilities, conspiracy, ESP, cryptozoology. There are many things that remain unexplained in the inexplicable world around us, and we're talking about them here, looking for answers on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. The truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. We are having a little bit of trouble with Katy Elizabeth's communications, but hopefully we're going to get her back for you because we had wanted her to share the Champ history and what she's doing over there, because some of the things I'm saying sound just way too cool. But we do still have Kenney, who is trying to get her as well. So hopefully we will get her back. Kenney, I know that when I was going through some of the images that I used for your video, you had some pretty astounding structure images.
Yeah, some of them, what we do when we go out into the field is we'll create some of the structures to try to get I guess, part of the theory behind it is to do a little bit of disruption, but not a whole lot. So, and it's funny too, because some of the pictures that you had up there were ironically actually of Gary, the founder.
I saw the one. Yeah. Sorry about that, but it was a good picture, and it's part of what y'all do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. There's different structures, that we'll build, as well as there's certain ones that we've come across. But usually when we set up any type of a research area, we'll do different type of techniques, and we'll try, different off the wall type of procedures. Like for instance, again, one, we built kind of like a small little shelter type of area. Mm-hmm. And again, it was a little bit to disrupt, but not totally completely disrupt the area, because obviously we don't want to, if there's any type of being in that area, we don't want to run it off.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, we want to do enough where, if it comes through, it's because, let's face it, they're the masters of their domain. They're the masters of the woods. So
they're also the masters of hide and seek.
Exactly. So, if they're coming through a certain area, they're going to go, wait a minute, this wasn't here before. Mm-hmm. And, so our thinking is that they're going to become curious and maybe stick around a little bit, and we may have a run and encounter. But, again, that's just one of the theories. And, we've done, different things just to kind of see if we got any type of results. Like, like we put flowers out in certain area where some people kind of would call that gifting. And we do perform the procedure of gifting, but sometimes, certain things that we put out isn't necessarily a gifting. It's more of I guess to attract attention. Right. Again, like I said before, where, hey, this is going to stick out as, wait a minute, this wasn't here before. And, one of the things, that we always say in the NYBS is that when it comes to the creatures of the woods, Sasquatch, Dogman, deer, bear, squirrels, what have you, that, we're their entertainment. These animals watch us. These different beings watch us. And, we try to, put things kind of in certain areas to gain the attention of the animals. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier in the call about, studying the behavior of the animals in the area. One thing is to get their attention in a positive manner as well, by putting colorful things out. And again, like different things like flowers and, Gary's put other stuff out in the past. I believe like different, like melons and stuff like that, honeydew melons. But, so our techniques, again, are to not necessarily hide from any type of, cryptid or animal for them, because let's face it, people wear camouflage, they go in the woods, this and that. Okay, they know you're there. The animals know you're there. And if a Sasquatch, 100% exists, they already know you're there. You may have those
everything knows you're there.
Exactly. So, when we go out, we don't wear camouflage. If we wear green, it's just because that's what we happen to put on that day. But they already know you're there. And, in our opinion, it's getting them comfortable enough with us there. And doing, less Hollywood, I guess. What I mean by that is, when you watch a lot of the shows, you're doing a lot of tree knocks, you're doing a lot of this, there's all this like Hollywood stuff that folks are doing. And we believe that, yes, that is a part of what we should be doing. But at the same time, we feel that, when we're doing so much, we might be missing what's actually right in front of our faces.
I would agree with that.
So we, we go out and, there's times where we just sit there. We don't say a word. We just sit there and we listen. And there's not a lot of groups that I've talked to that do that. They feel like they have to constantly be doing something because, when we go out, 9 times out of 10 we come back with nothing. And a lot of folks and teams unfortunately feel like they failed if they come back with nothing. And it's like, no, it's not how it works. You don't always come back with something. And, and to respect these beings, you've got to respect that, there's times where maybe they're going to give you something, but then there's times where maybe they're not going to. We do tree knocks. We actually have one on one of the recorders where I was way out, probably 500, 600 yards away from Gary. I was with another member of the NYBS, and Gary radioed us and said, "Hey, I'm going to do a tree knock." So we're like, "Yeah, sure." So he did it, and we were just quiet listening. And 45 seconds later, we got a tree knock back, and it wasn't like, "Hey, maybe this was," or like the wind was blowing and it made a tree kind of make a crack noise. Wow. It was the dead of summer. And there was no wind, there was nothing. And 45 seconds later, we got a distinct knockback that sounded exactly like the first one. And we've got that on a recorder. We've actually played that on our show, for folks that, were interested in hearing it. Gary's done it or played it at a lecture before. So it's definitely, there's something going on in the woods. Was that a Sasquatch returning, communicating with us? We can't say 100% for sure, but we can absolutely say that we heard that back. We've got it on a recording, and this is what it's normally known to be. The other thing when we're out in the field, we don't actually use baseball bats. We don't use sticks to hit trees. We actually use rocks, because what we found out is depending on the thickness of the stick you're using, you get different sounds. The stick either breaks, it's hollow. You get all kinds of different sounds. We found when we use a rock and we throw a rock at a tree, you get that same distinct knock noise every single time.
Well, it's like a clunk.
Exactly, yeah. And when we look at history and we look at science, I'm still on the 90%, that, Sasquatch are flesh and blood. There's still a 10% of me that's not sure. But, if you go back and you look at, primates and gorillas and apes, and they clang rocks together. They hit rocks off of things. So, for us, that's just, we don't say, yes, this is 100% true. That means that it is, primate, it's flesh and blood. But when you kind of connect the two together, you can kind of see where we're going with it. But yeah, so we don't use bats. We don't use sticks. We use rocks, and it gets that same distinct noise every single time. And then when you hear the noise back, it always sounds like it's a rock, not a stick. So that's kind of the direction that we've gone into. And I've talked to a couple different researchers that have been doing it for years and years. And they came back and they're like, you know what, that's actually an interesting theory, and it actually makes sense. So it felt good for me to be able to hear that from some of these researchers that have been doing it for years. Because a lot of the time, we look to them for answers. But to hear them, say something back to you like, wow, that makes sense. I hadn't thought of that. It just shows, that we're kind of going in the right direction and maybe bringing a new. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody loves validation.
Absolutely. And, it's funny, because we've gotten some slack before because we've actually said that, if we did get a picture of a Sasquatch or Bigfoot on our trail cam, that we probably would not come forward with it. So nowadays, hoaxing is so easy, and it's getting more rigid now. With everybody, there's technology everywhere, there's cameras everywhere. So even if we got like the perfect like picture or the perfect video, we probably would hold on to it and really not really go out into the world with it, because one, it would be debunked, it would be torn apart.
CGI.
And
yes.
Yeah. So, and again, we're not necessarily doing this to prove the existence. We're doing it because we want to know, like we don't want to believe, we want to know, so, and I think the fact of wanting to know over wanting to believe is what keeps us grounded too, and doesn't get us to jump all over something. So we're very, very grounded in what we do. And, we get a lot of people, that reach out to us and want to be part of the team too, because, they've been part of another team where they went out and everything was 100% true, no matter what it was. It was, they're flesh and blood, they're interdimensional, they're this, they're that. And, and they very well could be everything, but until we know that, it's, saying that it's 100% true. I don't know. People complain about, certain researchers or certain TV shows making what we do look bad. And my rebuttal to that is the only person that can make me look bad is myself. I'm the only one that can do that. There's no TV show. There's no person that's going to make me look bad in what I do. I'm going to make myself look bad, and I'm going to make myself look crazy. That's all on me. I'm in charge of me. The world isn't in charge of me. The Bigfoot community isn't in charge of me. And so again, we just go out, with a humble attitude. We leave our egos in the car, and we just go out and we learn from the area, and we just go and we talk about, what we're learning and what we're seeing. And it's again, a lot of people are appreciating that, because it's like it's a race or a fight right now to be the number one, with the best evidence, the best this, the best that. And in reality, I don't even really even call myself an investigator or a researcher, because I think those titles are, they're overused now. And everybody, you don't even have to have any type of background, and you're automatically an investigator or a researcher. There's a lot of self-titles there. And primarily because there's no other way to actually get the title, but to give it to yourself, because there's no actual real training in it. But I just call myself, I guess, more of an explorer in a sense.
Absolutely.
And it's because I'm the type of person where I can go into an area and I don't necessarily have to research or investigate. I can go into an area and just explore the area, just look at the area and see it. I'm the type of person where if somebody's like, hey, you want to go in this old house and I heard it's haunted, this and that, I'm more like, nah, I don't want to do that. I'd love to go and explore it. I'd love to go and explore the house, not necessarily try to go in and find a ghost. I love exploring different areas and seeing different areas. And, and then there's times where I go in and that's all I want to do. Like, I just want to explore the area. I just want to be in the area. I just want to see what the area is about, not necessarily do any type of Sasquatch research or investigation or any type of cryptid, dogman research or anything. I just want to go in the area and be in that environment. And, where, there's some people that they're just like, I got to go and I have to find something. It's like, all right, well, knock yourself out.
Well, I like to go and just experience what's around me. So, yeah. But we have a few questions, and we're going to be going to break in about 4 minutes. But I wanted to share an experience that we have over in our Fate Mag Radio WBHM chat room. And this is from Kim, who said they went to, the woman that she goes in the field with. They went to a place called Avon Bottoms a couple of months ago and went back into the woods. As they were leaving, a few fishermen were too. And they heard 6 knocks as they left the woods. And she said, we feel like it was the knocks counting the number of people walking out. So, I mean, maybe that would be a method just to let them know, hey, they're all accounted for. They're on. Come out. We can do the woods are ours again, kind of a thing.
Right.
But, do you find that happens when you're places?
I've heard about it. I haven't actually experienced that myself, but there's a lot of people that are very, very credible that have actually explained different aspects like that. Like, for instance, there might be like a tree structure type of thing pointing in a direction, and it's actually pointing in the direction of like an area where people commonly camp. Right. So I definitely think that there's definitely a communication aspect that goes on there, where there's definitely these animals, these beings. I don't like calling them animals because I think they're very human-like.
They're sentient. Yes.
Yeah. So these beings. I mean, they communicate, and to be able to not be seen in this day and age, they've had to become even more stealth. And I absolutely would back that claim that's probably what it was. That there were 6 of them, and they were leaving, and they were communicating, saying, "Hey, the coast is clear." I wouldn't be a bit surprised. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about we're kind of their entertainment. They watch us, and then they probably communicate about us leaving and what we're doing. Some folks have talked about, hearing like a jabbering type of chatter. And they say that's kind of like a communication back and forth between each other. But I absolutely, I would probably back that claim that if there were 6 of them, they heard 6 knocks, it was probably them communicating, either saying these 6 people have left, or there are 6 people. That wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Well, we are going to have to go to our last break, but I have so many questions for you, and we'll get to those when we come back, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And this is our final break. If you have questions, please get them in. We are live on Spreaker with our chat wide open. We are live on fatemag.com with that chat open as well, and that chat runs in tandem with the WBHM-DB.com chat. So get your questions in, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Cat Hopsy, Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. This is our final segment, and this has been so much fun. I just completely hate that Katy Elizabeth lost service. So hopefully we're going to get her back on and have a conversation and let her tell you what she's doing and educate us on Champ. Those who are not familiar with him, that was something I know a lot of y'all were looking forward to, but we'll get there. But we are here with Kenney Irish, and Kenney, are you up for some questions? Because we've got them.
Yeah, certainly.
Awesome. Let's see. I think this chat is good because she was sharing information. But this chat is chock full of questions for you. One of the things that is a sticking point, I think, for Sherry in chat is why are there no dead Bigfoot who have been found? And, no one has ever claimed to have found one that's passed away. So, and rumor has it that we have evidence of aliens that have passed away. So why would no one have found a Bigfoot? Do you think they're interdimensional?
I'm still 90% on the flesh and blood side. I definitely can't argue and say that they aren't interdimensional. One of the reasons, for instance, I don't know of any type of ghost spirit type of entity that can leave footprints on the ground. Right. I could be completely wrong. So that's why I kind of stay away from that interdimensional kind of paranormal side of it. Some folks say, well, the reason we think they are paranormal is because you see footprints and then all of a sudden they disappear. So like, what about that? And, I've kind of done some testing on kind of like my own footprints, meaning I've walked across a certain ground that looked exactly the same. And there's areas where I've actually left imprints and areas where I didn't leave imprints anymore. But yet the ground looked exactly the same. So, it could very well be, what it is underneath the surface of the ground. You're on a solid area, and then this area over here is just, there's water underneath it, so it's not as solid. I'm I can't 100% say for sure. All I know is, studying my own footprints, I have come across that. As far as the body,
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because that was one of those questions that it kept going in my mind. How do we even study that? And I'm like, well, why don't I look at my own footprints? And that's when I discovered that again there were times where I left them, and then there was times where I didn't, but yet the ground looked exactly the same. So, could that be it? I think maybe it's part of it. Is it the whole story? That I couldn't tell you. But as far as a body, there's many different theories. Many talk about, and especially the Native Americans talked about, families of Sasquatch. And, with Sasquatch being very human-like and intelligent, there's always that theory that, they bury their own. There's been some theories where some folks have actually said that, they're cannibalistic and they actually eat their own. I don't know about that. I'm more on the burying side of it. And I have heard stories of folks that have come across what they believe to be, like a dead Sasquatch. And then when they went back later, like it was gone. Of course, there's no proof to any of that. So it's really hard to say. Then there's others that say that 30 days in the woods, between the animals, eating the flesh and then the bones, that they pretty much clear it out. So it's really hard to say why we've never actually come across one. There are stories of folks that, again, have said that they have come across it, but then it wasn't there when they went back. But I don't know. I can only relate it back to, again, what the Native Americans spoke of, and how they were family units, and it would make sense that they would most likely bury it. A lot of folks also say that there's caves that we don't know about. There's entryways to caves, and who knows, maybe they put them in there where they live. It's really hard to say. There's no definitive answer on it. There's a lot of good theories, but it's easy to think well, they could be paranormal because there's no bodies, but at the same time, I'm not the type of person where I just I just want to believe, so I kind of jump on that bandwagon, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, it would be logical if they do live in family units, and I've heard that all my life, that, they would take care of their own. We do.
Exactly. And that's the thing. The only time that we come across a human body, it's not because the family left it there. Right. It's because something else happened. So, with these animals being close and interwound with each other, and they migrate together, you would have to believe that that they have a similar ritual when one passes.
Well, the next thing is you think there would be a hair snagged on a tree or an unknown bone found. Those things have happened.
Yes.
There is physical evidence of something non-human. They can't categorize it because they don't have anything that matches the DNA. Exactly. So there are unusual things of that nature.
Exactly. It's not a body, but there's enough, and I always say that, there's enough evidence to suggest this. So, and without a doubt, I mean, folks find it all the time, send it in, they find out, okay, well, this is just black bear. And then another time they send it in, and it's like, we really can't even tell what this goes to. So and that's science backing that up.
Well, yeah, because those are forensic researchers that are doing that. That goes to a forensic laboratory where it is tested by somebody trained in DNA research. Yep. That's what they did with the Star Child skull from the alien side of things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Let's see. I know that there's something else. Because she is... Oh, how long do you think that Bigfoot has been on the planet? How far back does that history go?
Yeah. There's, I've read many different theories and different ideas. I mean, I've read thousands of years, and I would have to believe that, being the way that they adapt. Because obviously they would have had to have come from something. And if we go back, even just 100 years, we'd be able to figure out kind of where they came from. But as you go back 200 years, 300, 400, 1,000 years, it's less likely to figure out where they came from. But, I'm definitely more on the side of, they've been around for thousands of years, and, how they evolved. I heard somebody say that one theory was that it was actually a water creature that actually crawled out and adapted to land and ended up reproducing with some type of gorilla ape, and then you ended up getting a Sasquatch. I've heard many different theories, but to answer that question, I'd say that they've had to have been around for thousands of years. I mean, especially with how stealth they are, how smart they are. There's a lot of learned behavior in order to live and exist, especially in the year 2020. So I'd say definitely thousands of years.
I would think so too, because they are very good at what they do. And
agreed. Yep.
I am not a Bigfoot researcher. I would like to be. I'm working on it. So I am looking forward to approaching it with your mindset of exploring. Because exploring leaves you a lot more open to ideas, I think. I like that.
Good. Excellent.
So let's see if I missed anything. And Sherry is always thought-provoking. I tell her all the time that she should have her own show because she's really into it. This was the one. Have you ever researched Bigfoot in other states or other areas? And she was just curious if you found any crazy evidence anywhere.
I have only researched Bigfoot in New York State. I have many friends that have gone out of state to do it. And it's primarily overall, the same evidence, the same type of experiences, regardless of what state you're in. And that kind of, goes back to, what I was saying before, where, I believe, they've been around for hundreds and, at least 1,000 years. And, I think that they have the same habits. I think they do the same things. I think they migrate at certain times of the year. I think they might even mate at certain times of the year. Again, a lot of the evidence and experiences that I hear from folks from other states, because there's a lot of researchers that I communicate with weekly from other states, and a lot of the evidence is the same across the board. There's never really been anything that's been crazy off the wall. For the most part, it's a lot of footprints. It's a lot of, unusual noises, howls, your normal tree knocks. There's definitely been, encounters and situations where, they felt like, they were actually being stalked, different things like that. But usually when it comes to, any stalking or anything that comes across as violent, it usually is like a dog man encounter. They'll end up saying, hey, we ended up seeing it. It was a dog man. But usually it's the same evidence across the board, which leads me to believe that, again, they're all, they're flesh and blood, and they've got these learned behaviors over the years that they're doing in all their areas. But obviously some areas are more populated than others. So you might have some that are a little more stealth. And then I've got the person that will say to me, well, hey, I was walking along and this one just pretty much walked out in front of me and just looked at me. How come this one wasn't stealth, this and that? And, who knows? I mean, if you look at my family, I mean, I've got some goofy people in my family. So who knows, maybe there's a goofy Sasquatch out there, in each family, and those are the ones that get seen. I don't know.
Well, every family has their exhibitionist.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's agreed.
One more quick question because we're out of time, but Black Dragons Radio is in our chat, and I'm very appreciative too. It says, I've always had this feeling that Bigfoot and the Yeti are related in ways we don't really understand. And my thought on that is that they're the same, but evolutionally adapted to fit their environments. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with what you just said. Without a doubt, you look at humans, we're all human beings, but yet we do have differences. We've got similarities, but we also have differences. Mm-hmm. There's folks that, live down, in Florida and can deal with the heat. And then you've got me that lives up north that can't deal with the heat. So I think that, they're absolutely the same. I think that there's just a different family, possibly a different bloodline, and they adapt to their locations that they're in and what they know.
Fascinating. And we are them. I mean, we look kind of like them. We act kind of like them. I think they're probably, in a lot of ways, a little more civilized than us. They just mind their own business and live their best life. So, everybody's dream, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And that's kind of why I named the book "Folklore Frankensteins," because one, they come from, we know about them from the Native American lore, but as far as the Frankenstein, some people have been like, well, they are scary, and the Frankenstein actually has a double meaning. One, yes, they can be scary, but I also I relate cryptids to the Frankenstein monster. We all know that the doctor's name was Frankenstein, the monster wasn't, but we unconsciously relate that name to it and name the monster that. And when you watch, Mary Shelley's classic tale, mm-hmm. Frankenstein wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a mean guy. He was misunderstood. He didn't try to be mean. He was just misunderstood, and that's why the people, kind of turned on him. He didn't mean to scare people. He didn't mean to do this. And when it comes to cryptids, I kind of see them in the same light as, yes. Very misunderstood. They don't mean to. They don't mean to, do the things, but it's our perception that kind of turns them into a Frankenstein monster. So that's kind of why I named the book Folklore Frankensteins.
I think it's a great title, and I think it's a great book. So I wish you all the success with that. Do you want to just tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, you can find me on Facebook under Kenney W. Irish. You can go to my website, which is www.kwirish.com. You can pick up any of my publications. You can pick them up through my publisher, Dark Moon Press, or you can go on Amazon. They are in a few select brick and mortar locations in the New England area, but obviously the easiest way is you can go on Amazon. It just recently was placed in the North American Bigfoot Center that's owned by Cliff Barack from the show Finding Bigfoot. So yeah, so you can find the book there. You can get in touch with me through Messenger on Facebook or through my website. You can also go to the Facebook site of New York Bigfoot Society. You can reach me there if you have any questions. So I'm definitely accessible. So wherever, whatever works best for folks that have questions or want to connect with me, I get back to everybody. I have no ego, so I appreciate everybody and every question and every theory and anybody who takes the time to reach out to me. I look forward to hearing from you.
Perfect. Well, you know what? I've got a feeling you're going to be hearing from people.
Excellent.
And that being said, it is that time. We are done for the night. Thank you so much for being here with us. Again, I'm so sorry that Katy Elizabeth was having trouble with her communications. Hopefully we will be able to get her back. And you know what? All you've got to do is just go out there and be the change you want to see. There's no reason not to. There's no reason to not be the best you, even when somebody else is struggling to be the best them. Because we all have those moments, right? I am not always like the sweet and perfect radio host that you see and hear here, right? I know you're shocked, right? But all you've got to do is just, be the friend that you would want to have. If there's someone that you can help, do it. Most of the time, it's not really going to be any skin off your nose to do that. If it is, then maybe there will be somebody there that can help you too. It's just all about community. We need to be a community. We need to be a community of caring individuals who want to be part of the great human family. And we are all part of one human family. So get out there, do that. Have a great week. Denise is on tomorrow night with the Paranormal Pride. I am Wednesday night for Paranormal Experience with Gene Lundgren. And take care. We will see you. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.